we want to understand how the Ninevites are reacting to Jonah, we have to learn more about Ninevites and Assyrians and why they did what they did. Assyrians would have had their prophets. We know of these prophets, and any king would have had prophets on his advisory staff. And they were used to listening to prophets. Prophecy actually in the ancient world was one category of divination. And just like they would observe the heavenly bodies and observe the livers of sacrificed animals, they would hear from their prophets. And so they were used to taking prophets seriously. When Jonah comes from some 600 miles away to give a prophetic message to the king of Nineveh, the king's got to be impressed. After all, why should Jonah bother to do this? He has nothing to gain from it. The king of Nineveh would have no idea what a god 600 miles away might be thinking about him, and no reason to think that a god 600 miles away would care about what he does one way or the other. After all, in the Assyrian mindset, gods lived in the midst of a city because there the people would offer their sacrifices, which they believed took care of the needs of the gods. They believed gods had needs. And the sacrifices in the temple all took care of the needs of the gods. So the people took care of the needs of the gods, and the gods took care of the needs of the people, kind of a symbiosis that worked out very well for them all. And so that's how they would have thought about the gods. So why would a god 600 miles away care about what happens in Nineveh? They weren't going to take care of that god. They weren't offending that god nor caring for that god. So it would have been a little bit of an oddity for Jonah to show up and say that they're going to be destroyed. You'll notice that he doesn't even tell them what god it is that is going to destroy them. Now, the Ninevite king would take such a thing seriously. He wouldn't say, oh, this is some goofball. Goofballs don't travel 600 miles to give a message like this. He would take a prophet's message seriously. He probably also would have had it checked by other means of divination. They did this with their prophets. They would check other divination indicators to find out if they backed up what was being said. He probably would have done that. The text doesn't talk about it, doesn't care about it. But the fact is that he does respond. That is, he takes Jonah seriously, as he would with any prophet. You don't write off the gods, and the prophets were the spokespersons for the gods. So he takes him seriously. Now, what he does, it doesn't say that the Ninevites decided that they were going to worship Yahweh. Yahweh's name hasn't even come into it. It doesn't say that they throw away their idols or that they got rid of their other gods. It doesn't say that they decided to be faithful to the covenant, to become covenant people. It doesn't say any of those things. They decided to give up their violent ways. Well, that's a good step to begin with, but it's not much. They do repent. That's good. Okay, any God would expect people to be just. And so to repent of injustice and violence, that's a step that any God would expect. My point is that the Assyrians are not acting outside of the character of Assyrians. They're doing what any Assyrians would do or any Babylonians would do. They're responding to this prophetic message that they are taking seriously. And so they believe God. That is, they believe what he said through Jonah, that they are in jeopardy and that they're ready to be destroyed. And so they respond in the ways that Assyrians would normally respond. And as a result, God decides to spare them, even though these are very small steps. They're not major steps, they're very small steps. But that's the point of the book. Taking small steps, even in your ignorance, in the right direction. And that's what the Ninevites do.